Today in Inside the Professor's Study, I talk with Dr. Cindy Ticknor. Cindy's a West Coast native. She grew up in Modesto, California, and came to Columbus via Fort Benning in the 1990s. She regularly teaches math modeling, statistics, geometry, and the early childhood education sequence. In this first segment of the show, she and I will talk about our mutual passion for teaching, the good, the bad, the endearing.
Oh,
All right,
look at him.
ready?
I'm looking at you.
All right, here's my softball opener.
Okay.
You are one of the rare university instructors who's also had the experience of teaching in high school. So how would you say teaching in high school has shaped your approach to college teaching or students?
That was a softball question?
Yeah.
It's not that different. It really isn't. High school students have a lot of energy, and they're very dynamic, and that's what's so fun about them. They will challenge your authority, so you have discipline issues to deal with, but if you take it with a sense of humor, there really are no discipline issues. It always surprises me if I ever have a discipline issue in college, because most students want to be there. But you do see that the attitudes are about the same sometimes with students. And the attitude can be with students who are at higher levels of, well, what can you really teach me, And it's really interesting when you just kind of cut to the chase and try to describe the differences between the preparation I had as a high school teacher and the difference of being a university professor. As a high school teacher, you're trained in the subject matter, but you're trained to teach that subject matter. But as a university professor, you're there to not just teach, but also to advance the knowledge in your field. And that's a big difference. So you're being taught by experts in the fields when you're a university professor, and that's the difference between a university and a high school, which is great.
Right. Well, I think it's so terrific that you're a person who taught high school and also has really fond feelings about it.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like,
I never really intended to teach at the college level.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed my high school students and working with them. Of course, the students I worked with were English as a second language, 98% of them. And most of them were first-generation students who were graduating from high school. So high school graduation was a phenomenal thing at the high school.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I guess the big difference, when you think about individual students, the difference in learning is not dramatic when you think about college and high school. Yes, they have more skill sets when they get to college, but you expect that. But I think the big difference was that you had to be a haven for some of those students. So when you came into a classroom as a student in high school from maybe not the best social circumstances that you were living in, you needed a safe place to go. And every day you'd be in my classroom, you'd be safe, and you'd be doing math, and it was very consistent. And sometimes they didn't have that consistency.
Yeah.
So, so I guess getting back to your question, what I'd think about is I really got to know my high school students very, very well and knew some of their families. And it gave you a great appreciation for always being aware of the student's background and what the student might be undertaking outside of the classroom that might impact their behavior in the classroom. And so it might not be you and how you're teaching and whether or not you're a good teacher, but whether or not something else happened in their lives that day.
That absolutely applies at the college level,
Yeah.
I think, as well. If not even more so. They're dealing
Right.
with all of these young adult issues. And
Yeah, but I think they're better at hiding it at the college level.
yeah, well,
You know, they have a little bit more maturity and professionalism, and they just want to come to class and do their job. But there's a lot that's going on that
Right.
may impact whether or not they do well. I had a student one semester in one of my intro math classes, and always was there, seemed attentive, but just, I don't know why, was just failing the class. Took it the exact next semester, got an A, and I went up to the student and said, what am I doing differently? And he
Right.
said, oh no, I had something going on in my personal life. So it always reminds you, sometimes you can't affect those things, just be there to support the students
right.
when they're ready to learn.
Well, so you had another interesting population of students to teach when you were in graduate school at Auburn. You had some of the star athletes, and so I was wondering if they brought that same kind of confidence and bluster into the mathematics classroom as they had in the field.
Well, sometimes I think they brought in boisterous fun because, when they get ready to go up to the chalkboard to do a problem, they would be kind of, working out, doing the moves and getting down. And sometimes they had to translate certain current lingo to me because I wasn't aware of their language. So I think there was more of a language barrier sometimes between me and the football players than it was with me and the students who were speaking Spanish. But I think they were an interesting population because, and I didn't, I was still getting my PhD in math education, but I had noticed that I couldn't get them to write anything down on paper. So you would give them a math problem and you'd go around looking at the classroom and their papers would be blank. They'd have the original problem on them, but then it would be blank. And so I went to one of my mentors and I said, I don't quite get this. I can't even get them to try, get messy, make mistakes, Miss Frizzle type attitude. And she said, well, think about it. Think about their backgrounds. They've been told all their lives that they're only good at football. They're not good at math. And that everything that they're going to write down is a mistake and they want to be right. And so it took a lot to get them, so I started focusing just on getting them to write stuff down. I said, I don't care what it is, I never have to see it, you can throw it away. But I couldn't imagine trying to do a math problem without writing things down.
Right, right. Wow, it's really, it takes a sharp, curious mind to also it's part of your field, math education, to really understand how the process of someone's learning is taking place. And
right, well, it brings in different elements. You have, of course, the skill set that you need to do the mathematics, so you need to have the mathematical background. It could be that they just don't understand what certain symbols mean, or they have a misconception about the meaning, but it also has to do with motivation and whether or not they feel that they are effective and they can do the math.
Right.
Or whether or not you just have to have talent, or whether it takes hard work.
Right, right.
And so those with hard work are more likely to be successful.
Right. Well, I can certainly relate to math having its own vocabulary, which, is part of the discipline. But I can imagine that there's a number of entertaining moments in class as people are kind of acquiring that vocabulary.
There have been some funny, slips. You talked about additive inverses, so an additive inverse is if you have 3 and you add a -3 and get to 0.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's not important. So I've seen things on papers like additive inverse. I was like, no, that's not quite right. In statistics, we talk about skewed distributions, but that became screwed distributions. And so, those are entertaining things. There's always a shining light in teaching math.
I always enjoyed singing imaginary numbers to the tune of Imaginary Lover. That seemed to make it a little more fun.
No, that's pretty funny.
Well, so tell me what one of your favorite math concepts to teach might be. When it's this day in class, what do you get really excited about?
Oh, that's a good question. They're all exciting. How could this be? Well, I always enjoyed working in math modeling. We always did continuous growth in an account. So basically, if you have, I'm going to lose my voice. Hang on.
I'll sing imaginary numbers.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead and do that. You can start telling stories of Sokotoa, the ancient Indian sheep of trigonometry. Anyway, basically we would work with compound interest and understanding if you put a certain amount of principal in a bank account and it grew 10% interest and you got that compounded over monthly for a year, how do you come up with this? And so we would start off with just taking the raw numbers and then dropping the raw numbers down into eventually a formula that they could understand.
Right.
So and just say, okay, well, exactly when you're doing this maneuver where you're having to do this repeated addition and multiplication, how can we simplify it? And in the end, you get this great little formula. Well, at least I would think it would be great.
Yeah.
And the great little formula could do the work for you so much more efficiently. And so that's the time that you say, hey, yeah, it's really cool not to have a recursive formula, but a function that would actually be able to generate, that amount for you. So.
It's a great exercise. I mean, I can easily picture where, what you've done essentially is help the student to kind of build the formula for themselves. What a better way to learn it than just being handed it to, I think about that in the classroom all the time. It would be the simplest, and I do sometimes default to just, the most straightforward, direct kind of, here's what you need to know, boom. On the other hand, it's a constant challenge to think, what can I ask them that's going to help them reach this conclusion without my having to say it?
Exactly. That's the toughest part of teaching.
Yeah. But so much more, I think, well digested, right, on their part, if they can have figured it out for themselves.
When they talk about, cognitive learning, how you're trying, or constructivist learning, where you're trying to construct your knowledge. So you're trying to connect it to all those past experiences and build something new. And so you're trying to give them as little scaffolding as possible so that they can, rather than memorize what you know, they can build what you want them to know.
Right.
So
it's a lot more fun. Too.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot more challenging as a teacher. I mean, how boring would it be to be in a classroom and say, well, know this and know that, and know this and know that, rather than, hey, you can figure this out. Isn't this really cool?
Right. Yeah. We've all been in those type of classrooms.
Oh.
Well, okay, so I'm going to change tacks a little bit here.
Okay.
Your career path at Columbus State has taken a number of interesting turns, which you probably never anticipated in graduate school. So you have served in administrative positions. You've done some grant writing in teams and with partners. You are now directing a program and trying to develop a program and take it somewhere. So of all of these different hats that you've had a chance to wear, what's been the one that maybe surprised you the most, or you felt least prepared for whatever it was that transpired?
That's easy.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Because I was so shocked when it happened. And I'm so thankful that Tim Howard called me into his office one day, and I thought, uh-oh, I did something wrong. He was my department chair at the time.
Yeah.
I was just a assistant professor in the math department. And he said, Glenn Stokes is going to come over here and talk to you. And he was just named the interim dean of the College of Science. And I said, why? What's going on? He says, well, he wants you to, become an associate dean. I had no clue that was coming. It seemed like it was completely out of left field. And so, fortunately, I got my act together before Glenn showed up.
Moved your job.
Yeah, exactly. The job was on the ground. It was just, who, me, what, how? Yeah. And my first questions back to Tim were like, what should I do? What should I do? So and what was really fun is I accepted the position and got into the office, and about 1 week after that, Glenn took off to Australia on a study abroad. And so people were bringing me forms to sign, and I'm trying to read them. I'm going like, I'm not even sure what this is. So it was trial by fire. Yeah, but I survived.
Well, and I remember some of your tasks involved things like scheduling, room assignments. So,
and that's kind of fun.
Well, exactly. In some sense, that plays to your strength. It was like putting together a big puzzle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a big jigsaw puzzle, and trying to make things the most efficient possible. And anytime there's a spreadsheet involved, count me in. I just love it.
Yeah, I've heard you described as kind of goddess of Excel.
Well, I like it.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I can do
because Excel would not be the program that I would consider myself very adept in.
Yeah, I'm an aficionado, so I always like learning new stuff in it too.
Yeah. Wow. New stuff in Excel.
Oh yeah, I don't know everything. But way back when in college when I was interning, we did Lotus 1, 2, 3, which was the big spreadsheet at the time. And so I learned how to do macros and that kind of thing on it then.
Yeah.
So I don't have to use them very often anymore, but every once in a while they come in handy.
Yeah.
But,
all right. So what's it like to win a big, huge grant?
Shocking. It's really, it's a lot of work that goes into writing a grant. And it's much harder than writing a research paper, in my opinion, because in a research paper, you submit it to the publisher, they give you feedback, you get to submit it again. And with a grant, it's a 15-page,
one-shot
deal to say, please, will you give me this money? And so it's very exciting to finally get one breakthrough and be able to actually take a large chunk of money and see some significant changes and that have been sustained since the grant came on. So, we have the whole Math and Science Learning Center now, and that was because of a grant.
Yeah.
And so it's neat to see that kind of thing, kind of like breadcrumbs that you leave along the way.
Absolutely. It's like a fingerprint that you've left on the institution. So, and you said you were working on something just over the weekend. What are you working on now?
Right. I'm working on another NSF grant. It's a STEP grant. And what that is to try to get more students involved in science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Okay.
Because, of course, as I moved from the math department up to the dean's office, I broadened my perspective from just getting math, advancing math to advancing math and science education. So this particular grant will tie in with the ones we already have. Tim Howard's the PI on the principal investigator on the NOISE grant, which is our craft STEM project. And then Kim Shaw and Debbie Gober are the PIs on the UTeach program. And that's all to get more math and science teachers. But what we've seen is we see that a lot of our science students have poor retention, and they're coming from rural, at-risk, first-generation populations. So we're putting together a grant that I'm the lead PI on, and then Tim and Kim are also co-PIs. But what we'll do is try to put together a bridge program for the summer that allows students to come and take their first math class and get into a community of learners right away during the summertime and give them a head start as they enter into the college courses of science and just get over the shell shock while you're in a small cohort during the summer, and learn all about the campus so that you can, not have all those, social adjustment issues you might have that a lot of freshmen have when they come in.
I think that's a terrific idea.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in Interdisciplinary Program Council last week, a little bit about the task force that's working on summer enrollment, and that would be, I think, such a useful way to channel resources over the summer, particularly if there's non-academic things involved as well. I mean, I think helping students to make that transition to being in charge of their own time could be really great.
Yeah, so the grant would fund orientation, a living learning community, because there's a substantial body of research related to helping at-risk groups advance in mathematics and also in science. And the biggest model is the Treisman model out of Berkeley, where basically they looked at the issue as far as African American black males as the target population in the first model, that they would socialize together, but they wouldn't do anything academic. They wouldn't study together or anything like that. And so basically they had some definite cohort building activities that we hope to replicate that can actually build a cohort that not only socializes together, but also studies together. And so that you have that moral support group as you start into all of the difficult sciences. The other element is we're going to bring in Dawn Frazier out of the College of Education, who she has some background working with gifted youth, and she does some research related to possible selves and how students conceptualize themselves in different ways in the future. And so we want to keep a future orientation of our students so that they can keep in mind the end product. They want to be a science major? Yes, that's great. They want to go to graduate school in science? Great. Now we have to get you through Chem 1. And then we have to get you through organic. And so we have to make sure their proximal goals can be met so that they can get to their future goals. So we'll have some additional activities if we get funded, taking them to different area industries that use science majors and careers. So we do that with the craft STEM noise program that we have. We have the Georgia STEM Honors Camp that Kim and Tim do. So.
That sounds really smart. And it's interesting to me. I mean, it kind of parallels something that we talk about in freshman writing classes, which is basically allowing students to develop a new discourse, an academic discourse that will be in their repertoire, right? That they wouldn't necessarily lose the language that they speak with their friends or at home, but they'd acquire this new sense of how to communicate. And it's funny that you mentioned Dawn as well, because she and I were reading in the group that Fred Cohen had organized this fall, Why Teach, Mark Edmondson's book. And he's got this chapter on being uncool. And how important it is for professors to model uncoolness. Like, it's okay.
It's okay to be a nerd. Absolutely.
And being a nerd in the way that Edmondson describes it has something to do with revealing your pure enthusiasm for something or other, which can be kind of uncool, you know?
Yeah, people do that, when you get really excited about a logarithm or something.
Right.
But and it's important, though, too, I'm always, you don't have to be, a geeky-looking white boy with a pocket protector in order to be nerdy about something you absolutely love, So you have to break the mold and make the mold your own.
It's to me that isn't too far removed from you're talking about making the classroom a safe space for students as well, It's nice to feel that there's a place in which you can be enthusiastic about some idea, right? As opposed to, I don't know, the sorts of normal things that people talk about just socially. But
yeah. But it's okay to talk about math socially.
That's right. Okay. Even if it might involve writing equations on napkins at restaurants. Right?
Yeah, I know why you bring that up.
Well, so you and I are, I think, unusual in that we're both mothers of 3 kids.
Oh, yeah.
And full disclosure, our children are friends. They're very close friends, in fact. And so I was remembering, in fact, that the way that I met you first, even though we've been colleagues at CSU ever since I came here in '99, because you were already here, was through a fellow parent at the elementary school, Dee. The incomparable Dee Dee Dean, who said to me, "You need to meet Cindy. Don't you know Cindy?" Yeah. I said, "No." She said, "Well, you're like the same person." I said, "We are." So funny. It was really funny. But, we both taught at Columbus State. We both had children in this school. We lived in the same neighborhood. We were pretty much the same person.
There you go.
But so I admired so much when that first year that I met you through being a parent, the way that you came up with the most clever idea for the kids' party before winter break. Which is always a little fraught, in elementary school with the whole, making it an inclusive holiday party.
Right.
And it was 1999, and you and Andrea Bingham, who's a math teacher at Richards these days, threw a Happy New Year party, which was so brilliant because I think everyone was a little wound up about Y2K.
Yeah.
Even kids, I think, were a little, they're very perceptive. They worried it might be the end of the world, I think. And so we had this really fun, kazoos and confetti Happy New Year party.
It was great.
It was great.
I forgot about that.
Thought, this is an interesting person. I really do need to get to know Cindy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question that I often wonder about myself, because we've been kind of juggling all of this parenting responsibility and career issues. Do you think that having a pretty intense domestic life and a pretty serious, professional responsibilities forced you into being serene and calm? Like, has that made you into a calm person? Or were you essentially a calm person and that's what allowed you in the first place to kind of pull all this off?
Oh, gosh, I don't think anybody would ever call me calm.
I think of you as calm.
Really?
Very steady.
Oh, well, I think I can get calm in the middle of chaos.
Yeah.
Because also, full disclosure, 3 boys. So, it would not be surprising to have to be cooking dinner and being on the phone and seeing something getting thrown across the kitchen and catching it in midair, which I think that happened at an honors party at my house one time. Somebody threw something and I just caught it and they thought, oh, I'm going like, 3 boys, have to have that skill set, So it's more of, when you have boys rolling around and, trying to take swings at each other or whatever, you just have to be that, calming force of stop the chaos.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. My kids always gave me a hard time about getting in the zone, though, when I was in graduate school. Because when you're trying to solve a math problem that takes more than a day, you have to be able to tune everything out, and so it could be dangerous.
I know about that hiding behind the locked door.
Yeah.
Having had a little note pushed underneath, by a 3 or 4 year old in crayon. Check 1, yes or no. Can we watch another episode of SpongeBob?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, golly.
All right.
Man,
Well,
they're cute. Oh, gosh. No, I really, you think I'm calm? That's
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, okay. So here's a fun question.
Okay.
What's your alternative fantasy career?
Storm chasing.
Really?
Yes, I think that would be totally cool.
Storm chasing.
Well, I really did like the weather in middle school, and I thought about being a meteorologist. And then, I do get obsessive about, every once in a while, and, the whole,
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Every once in a while when I have that escapist moment, like I can't take this anymore, I'm going to go out to Kansas and start chasing storms. Because you can see broad, long distances, way out in the open, and eat fast food and go chase tornadoes.
Do you get excited when is a tornado's heading our way?
Me?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind of...
Me too.
But it's bad, though. I know it's a bad thing. But hurricanes, I will watch, the Weather Channel. I get really irritated at the Weather Channel when they have non-weather stuff on it. Mm-hmm. And so it's... But yeah,
I think I'm less interested in the weather angle than I am in the community coming together angle. Oh. I really enjoy the idea that, like, woo, we're all in this together. Let's go out and, protect our lawn furniture.
For me. Oh, no, it's more of, wow, what really creates that wind to go that fast? That kind of, that's, I'm more the technical person. I'd rather not have anything destroyed, but just the power of nature is just compelling.
Yeah.
But the other thing that came to mind is I've always, one of the NCTM, which National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, and that's the national professional group that I'm in. But one of the past presidents actually went to Sub-Saharan Africa and taught for a year, and I always thought that would be something that would be really wild to do.
Yeah,
I don't think I have. I'm not a risk taker though, which is kind of funny that I chose those two paths that I would never do because I'm not a risk taker. So you're looking skeptical at me.
Well, yeah, because I would think you're drawn to that sort of risky.
I guess I'm risking from a leadership role. That kind of, I'll go out and try new things.
Yeah.
From a physical standpoint, you can ask,
Okay.
Colonel Mike in the ROTC, he knows exactly how little risk I will take physically. So,
you took the honor students to the obstacle course.
Yes, and I had to rappel down a big old tower. It was terrifying. It was quite entertaining for all of the soldiers on top of the rappelling tower because, once you lean over, they don't tell you this, but you lean back, you cannot get back up. I was actually thinking of the physics of the situation, going like, nope, I don't have the upper body strength to get back up on this thing, so there's no way but down. And so you're going down. Yeah, my husband and all the soldiers thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, but you made it. You're here today. You're in one piece.
Yes, I made it. I'm not doing that again. No. I know you got an adrenaline rush. I just don't need that kind of adrenaline rush. I get plenty in the classroom.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. But you were willing to do it, and you took your students to do it. Did the students like it?
Most of them, yes.
Yeah.
There were some people on my side too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of them really enjoyed it. So.
It's great for them to get to know about themselves, though, whether they're risk takers or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know when you're 19, 20, 21, it's just so hard to know anything really about yourself firmly. At that point, you're still in process.
I'm still in process now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's to that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, so I was reminded of our, I guess he was never your dean, my former dean, Bill Chappell's words of wisdom when I was thinking about interviewing you. And so I was thinking about a couple of things that I I remember very vividly from being kind of under his tutelage for a year or so. One was that he was sort of the philosophy of the academic all-rounder. He felt that the best teachers were likely also to be the best administrators and the best researchers.
Oh.
Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I always think of myself as excelling towards mediocrity. Maybe I think that you can have specialists who are really good in different areas, though. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very difficult to do all of those things at once. Mm-hmm. So I think I could be a much better researcher than I am if I had the time to devote to do it. Mm-hmm. But I have to balance between administration and teaching. And I have just a love of teaching, too.
Yeah.
So, absolute love of teaching. So, I think the answer is yes and no. It's really personal.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess a perfectionist to me says it's too difficult and it's too much pressure to put on yourself to excel at all those things. But life is long, so there's no reason why you can't excel at teaching this decade and excel at research the next decade and administration the next decade, and not be in the same career path the entire time. And I think that is quite a different dynamic than it used to be, because life is so much longer and so much richer, I think, than it used to be. It used to be that you were a doctor, a lawyer, a baker, and that's the path you had for your entire life. Mm-hmm. You taught for 20 years, but now I'm thinking if I got out of college when I was 21, 22, taught for 20 years, I'd only be in my 40s. I would have an entire another career I could do. Right. And given the fact that I seem to change careers every 3 years, it's a much different concept of career. And for a very goal-oriented person, I think of myself, somehow I'm always driven by goals, but I've always had these other goals fall into my lap,
Right,
so.
Right. Well, Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, that I just finished reading, actually, suggests that we need to change our metaphor from the career ladder to the career jungle gym.
Yeah.
Because you don't move in a linear way and end up, reaching for bars that you would never have even known existed or considered before. Exactly. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're not moving somewhere and,
exactly.
Sort of gaining different experiences and wisdom that will benefit you over the long run.
Right.
But, I also think that's one of the nice aspects of teaching at a university of this size, and probably of our particular culture, which is that I have never felt at CSU that I was pigeonholed, or that it wasn't possible to take up something that I hadn't previously considered. And I'm just now, I think, learning that it's fairly normal over the course of a long scholarly career for your research interests to change as well. I mean, very few people, I think, continue to be focused on the same narrow kind of scholarly questions they were when they wrote their dissertations.
Oh, no. Way different.
Yeah. So, I think that matters in hiring new colleagues as well. I think sometimes we get a little overly invested in the particular focus we need someone to, fit in order to, complete some vision for the department. And really, it might serve us better to think more over the long haul about the kind of intellectual curiosity the person brings with them. final segment, Cindy and I reflect on the changes we've seen in Columbus over the past decade plus and what kept her in the community.
That's harder to tell.
It's really hard to tell.
That one's difficult.
It is hard to tell.
Right.
Well, so the other chapel moment that I was pondering was a piece of advice that he offered me about making the university what I wanted it to be. He said, you fight for the sort of institution that you want this to be. Mm-hmm. And, I wasn't tenured yet at the time. It just felt, like such an empowering piece of advice. So what are your dreams for this university? What would you like to see it become?
It's funny when you were talking, at the time, with my first marriage, we had a decision to make when he got out of the military. We could have moved anywhere. Mm-hmm. And we looked at different places, Greenville, South Carolina, going back to California, and I really wanted to stay here in Columbus because at the time, which was about 1999, mm-hmm. You just see the city changing and transforming. And when I first got here in '92, just before the Atlanta Olympics, there wasn't much here at all. There was not the convention center downtown. Right. There wasn't any. Downtown wasn't downtown. Mm-hmm. And our first trip in was right across the bridge onto Victory Drive. And so I'm going like, where exactly have we come? Mm-hmm. But it really was someplace where we chose to stay. And when it came time to think about where to apply for positions, of course, Columbus State was within Columbus where my family was, but there's also Auburn and other mm-hmm. places around. But again, I guess I pick not necessarily the underdog, but a place where you see, wow, there's a lot of room for growth. Auburn's already where it is. Columbus State has so much more it can be. Mm. And it's a great institution. I think the reason it's great is because of the faculty that we have. We work with some great people.
We do.
And what you just said about how supported you felt, I think that's true for most of us. I think there's some areas we can get, like in grant writing, a little bit more support, but I think a lot of us can go in the directions we feel we need to go professionally, and that we're not being stifled in general, even in some fairly harsh economic times. But where do I see it going in the future? I think it's really at the precipice right now to transform and really start to attract students from all over the state and all over surrounding states. We're already doing that with our music program and with our athletic programs, and it's time to kind of take the next level and look at our academic programs as well. If we can get on the radar of the people up in Atlanta to provide a little bit more funding for our facilities, mm-hmm. It's going to be a totally different campus. And I think we'll have not only a dynamic downtown, but we can start focusing on the main campus as kind of the academic hub,
right?
Where students want to come and get their core classes and really delve into the humanities and into the sciences.
Right.
I can see all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
Of course, director of the honors program, so I see honors growing, and really with Katie Hughes' work in the competitive pre-med program going on, I think what we're going to be able to do is have this hub of students that can really, they want to be shaped and to accelerate into their graduate programs and professional careers. Mm-hmm. I think we can do that. Yeah. I think we have enough of a dynamic right now and enough of a cohort of students who have a lot of enthusiasm that they're going to bring the rest of the campus up.
Yeah.
And we're primarily right now an undergraduate institution. We can get a lot of those undergrads involved in all of our scholarly activities, mm-hmm. and I think that that's a really enriching experience that our students can personalize stuff. So it's such a warm campus for that kind of thing, but it also is so up and coming. I mean, look at how much was invested in the arts and how far that came.
Yeah.
So we can see that when we put the money, we have excellence.
Right.
You know, there. It's just a matter of having additional money to grow the main campus and and accelerate from, you know, all of our majors and disciplines. So.
Right. Well, we worked together on strategic planning this past year, and I'm pretty excited about the plan.
I am too.
I felt good about the group that worked on it together, and
that was a long process.
It was a very long process, but you know, did we end up with the word increasing? Did we end up with the phrase increasing the coolness factor?
Coolness factor is in there.
Is it in there?
It is. You know, that is still in the strategic plan.
Good.
We never could figure out a better.
Shana Young.
Yeah, I know.
She was pumping for that.
We just need to, you know, get a better coolness factor on main campus.
Well, I will say, I mean, I teach on the River Park campus, and I look forward to the day when the River Park students will not be disparaging about main campus. That bumps me out. Yeah.
But in some of the things, I think the actual classroom spaces downtown, they kind of need improvement too.
Not all of them are great. It's true.
No. There's a couple halls that won't be mentioned that really could use some, some improvement for the academic environment. I mean, we have some beautiful buildings on main campus too. It's just a matter of you know, if we want to continue, I think we're one of the best campuses in the state as far as STEM education and preparing future teachers for science and math. I'm just going to say that. Because we have the U-Teach program, we got a lot going on, but we need to get the science labs, you know, up to snuff to support not only producing more teachers, but bringing in more grants to do additional work.
Right,
and so if you think about it, the arts is traditionally supported by a community, right, and community donors, and science is traditionally supported by grants and continuous influx of NSF grants. Well, NSF won't give us money unless we have the space, and the experience, and so we're kind of at the precipice to jump off. You know, we already with the noise grant, and if we can get this other NSF grant, then we're getting ourselves established in that area of undergraduate research. So, but anyway, it can be
that's exciting. That's a vision of you know, dramatic change, but also not completely inconceivable.
Well, no, it's not. No, especially when you think of you know, the student body that we have. I mean, we're talking about advancing our growth, but changing the complexion a little bit. And when I mean changing the complexion, I mean right now, you know, we've gone from our community-based college, and we're bringing people from the outside and even internationally coming, so that we have this really diverse mix and an academic community that can propel all of our students who are local to the next level as well. So, I mean, we could do it. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to hear from other people in the community about their sons and daughters coming to CSU without necessarily expecting much from it, and then being so really impressed and surprised.
Yeah, we've had, in fact, one of the recent valedictorians at one of the high schools is in the honors program, and she originally was going to come here and then transfer out, and she's going to stay here for the 4 years, and because she just loves it here. And so that's because we have really cool faculty.
Yeah, well, okay, so super cool
we
faculty.
just need more coffee houses.
Yeah.
Coffee houses and study lounges, apparently.
Okay. I can do more coffee houses.
I think so.
All right, so what is CSU's best kept secret? Or I'll give you an alternative.
I was going to say me.
Yeah. Well,
No.
not so secret,
no,
really.
no.
What about or our city, our town, Columbus? What's something cool about Columbus that not as many people know about?
I love the bike path. I'm a biker, so I just think that wow, you don't see that kind of bike path everywhere. I mean, it's really pretty neat. I'd love to see that keep going.
Yeah, more and more people are discovering that.
Oh yeah, because then you can bike downtown and you can you know eat empanadas on Saturday mornings and there's always countries, because if you bike then you can go to countries and have a whole bunch of barbecue. It's just the hometown people. I don't know. I mean, it's the people.
Yeah.
It really, that's what, it wasn't, every single city has a mall, every single city has cool, eclectic little places to go eat. And we're getting more and more of those, which is great. But it's really the people. I mean, it's just, you can have these really good experiences, but in a really, a safe place that, there's just a lot of good people in this town.
I love the interconnectivity too of teaching students whose parents are teaching my children, whose there's all this great kind of cycling through of teaching and learning.
Right.
I mean, it amazes me sometimes how quickly our students are in the classroom. I mean, I feel it's hard to underestimate the kind of direct impact that you have on the education of people in the community when, you're working with bright students who will be out in those classrooms before you know it. And it's cool.
I would bring it back to CSU, though, too, as far as the best kept secret. And it has to be all the individual professors who are working in their fields. And I teach a class for the honors freshmen. And I invite faculty from across the university to come in and talk about their research. And it's really neat for me because often, I haven't really heard that much about their research either. And the students are just so interested and engaged with many of the professors that come in, and the professors are always inviting the students to come and participate in what they're doing. So, Monica Frazier works with breast cancer cells and research in biology. Kevin Burgess does DNA barcoding that's all over Canada, and you can even relate it to South America. It's really interesting stuff. Mark Schmidt does numerosity, and I think the best kept secret are all of those individual research projects, whether they're in music or Shannon Godlove in medieval studies. I mean, she came in and spoke Old English in the class, and ooh, that sounded really cool. Yeah. And it's their enthusiasm for what they're studying and their open invitation for students to come and work with them. I think you don't find that. At bigger institutions, they're looking for lab rats. And basically they just want you to do all the, ugly stuff. They aren't really there to sit there and explain, okay, this is what you're doing and this is what you're doing. Rosa Williams has worked with many students, including my son John, out at the Coca-Cola Space Science Museum and or Center, and working with their radio telescope out there, looking at supernova remnants.
Wow.
But it sounds very complex. But he did a senior project with her. But Zach Edwards, who's now at LSU in graduate school, worked with her as well. And it goes on and on. I used to say when Jerry Maguire was a more well-known movie, people have already forgotten it. But do you remember the moment in the movie when Jerry's trying to get clients to come with him on his solo agency, and it's a big struggle. And he says, I'm about personal attention, personal attention, personal attention. And I always thought, that's what we are. We're the Jerry Maguire of universities. We're about personal attention. And customizing what you want. I mean,
I don't know if we'd want to be like Jerry Maguire in other ways, but
no.
But in that way,
Well,
it's okay.
Yeah.
He redeemed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a funny scene, though.
Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted my question list.
Really?
Were there other things that you
You never asked me about the prayer group.
Oh gosh. I forgot. Well, I was
One of my biggest accomplishments.
I
brought students to God. Okay, that might be
in
a
an
little
unexpected way.
Yes.
In an unplanned way.
Yes.
One morning.
On the way to my final exam, I walk around the end of Arnold Hall, and I'm not paying attention. I got my tea, of course, in my hand and my papers, and I kind of got about halfway down to the classroom that was on the other end, and I look up, and there's, 3/4 of my class out in front of the building having a prayer circle for my exam. And I didn't know quite what to do. I thought, well, I don't want to interrupt them because, they're asking God to, be with me as I wrote the exam and, very kind stuff. But I don't want to embarrass them. But if I started walking back, they would hear me walking back. So I didn't want to, So they finished up and they said, amen. And they all looked up and they saw me and they went, oh! And I said, amen.
Get your pencils out.
Yeah.
Here we go.
No. Yeah, I never realized I had stressed people out so much. It's like just statistics,
That's great.
But they did really well.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, I don't know.
They had calmed themselves.
Yes, they had centered themselves. So, yeah, I just never had thought. You don't realize your impact as a teacher sometimes until you have people really so concerned they're praying about your exam. It's like, oh, I didn't really want to cause that kind of stress. But,
you were creating community.
Oh, that's a nice way to think of it.
Yeah.
That is a nice way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome.